Alright, quick question before I start. How many of you guys here are hockey fans? Maybe show hands. Alright, how many of you guys are Bruins fans? Anyone that's not a Bruins fan? Good. So, when I think of the Bruins, I think of all the amazing memories I've had going to games, watching games, and obviously some of them are good and some of them are bad. So who's been to a Bruins game? Who's actually been to a Bruins game? Alright, you know how they do the fan of the game? So when I was 8 months old, I went to my first Bruins game, and my dad held me up above his head like Lion King, and I won fan of the game. Although I don't remember that, it's really special to my father because it was mine and his, I guess you could say, first bonding moment, even though I don't remember it. So today I want to speak about my memories about the Boston Bruins, whether they're good or bad. So let's begin. So, although I don't really remember that first memory I just mentioned, my first real memory that I would remember would come a couple years after I started watching hockey, actually. I started watching hockey in 2010, I started watching in 2007, and in 2010, it was, I believe, October 18th, I went to my second Bruins game ever, and it wasn't that fun. We got completely blown out of the water, 7-1, by one of the rival teams that we play, and the officiating was so bad, people were throwing bottles on the ice, beer on the ice, and they were trying to hit the refs. Now, my next memory would come later on in 2010, March 7th to be exact. One of my favorite players of all time, Marc Savard, was hit in the head and concussed, and he was never able to play again as a result. There was no penalty or fine or suspension given to the player who hit him, and every single Bruins fan was outraged because it was clearly a dirty hit. He went down to shoot the puck, and the guy came over and clipped him in the side of the head with his elbow. And Marc Savard was never able to play again. Now, 2010 really was not a fun year for me, especially considering 2 months later, May 14th, we were in the semifinals of the playoffs against the Philadelphia Flyers, and during that series we had a 3-game lead, and we had a 3-0 lead in the Game 7 itself, and we ended up blowing it. Now, I don't know exactly how many times a team's blown a 3-0 lead in a playoff series and lost, but it was easily one of the most devastating moments of my time watching hockey. But there is one more memory that really hurts me more. But on a lighter note, we're moving on to 2011, and any Bruins fan here knows what happened in 2011. We finally won the Stanley Cup after about a 30-year drought. So I remember crying tears of joy at 1 a.m. because we played our Game 7 in Vancouver, Canada, which was about 2-3 hour time difference than us. So the game started at 10:30, and I stayed up the entire night to watch the game, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Another memory that really sticks to me is March 7th, 2013, when the Bruins signed Jaromir Jagr, who is one of the oldest players to ever play the game and one of the best players to ever play the game. Currently, he ranks second in the league in points, assists, and goals in the history of the NHL. He's currently 46 years old, and he's playing in his last season, and it was just such a cool experience to go and watch him live because he is such an icon to hockey. Now, 2016-17 season was personally my favorite year of hockey because it was my first year with season tickets, so I think I spent more time in Boston watching Bruins games than I spent doing schoolwork that year, so I mean, my grades showed clearly. But I mean, one of my favorite memories from that season, although we lost this game, we lost 5-1, I remember we scored our last goal, like our first goal of the game, with 30 seconds left, and the guy behind me stood up and he spilled his beer all over me. And I had to ride home smelling like beer, and my mom was more than pissed at me because I came home smelling like beer and she thought I was drinking. Referring to my first speech, how I said I had season tickets this year, unfortunately, we had to not take them because I'm in college now, and I don't really have time to go out and go to Bruins games anymore. My sisters are free sport athletes, so we don't really have the time to go to them anymore. So it's kind of an unfortunate turn of events because I was really looking forward to going to at least 20 games this year. However, I did manage to go to one earlier this
Yeah.
month. Oh,